Welcome. My name's Bill Chandler, and I'm Director of Concerts and Engagement with the Royal Scottish National Orchestra. And it's our great pleasure to welcome Zeb Sones, who joins us for our upcoming world premiere project of his latest book, Gaspar's Foxtrot. And we're so excited to welcome you. Thank you, Zeb, for joining us today to talk about this.
Thanks very much for having me, Bill.
Zeb, I wanted to start by just asking you a little bit of background. What inspired you to take this latest adventure of Gaspar with an orchestra?
Well, all of the very first Gaspar story was inspired by real events. It was inspired by a real fox that visited me here at home in London. So each of the stories has had its starting point as a real event. So the first book, it was the local Canal Festival. The second book, it was the local fancy dress dog show. And I collect things in a scrapbook for ideas, for stories. And I'd seen a photograph of a fox travelling on the top of one of those open-top London sightseeing buses. And I thought, this is fantastic. I've got to find a way to get Gaspar on a bus. But then I couldn't really work out how to do it, to keep it authentic, because you can only stretch the bounds of reality so far before the stories kind of become something different. And I think hopefully part of the charm is that it almost feels as if all of this could really happen. So I had to get Gaspar on a bus. So I decided that his friends needed to be going somewhere, and a concert in a park, the prom in the park, seemed like the ideal journey for him to make. And of course, he gets on the bus by accident. So I wanted them to get to the proms. But also James and I have a great passion for music. So it's something that we've wanted to weave in for some time.
Brilliant. You've worked with James before, obviously, on the Gaspar series. And I'm just wondering how unusual it was for this project to actually bring another creative force into the arena with Jonathan Dove's fabulous music. Was that a big departure for you, or was that a natural evolution? You mentioned James and your passion for music. I'm wondering how this came about.
Well, when James and I very first met and had lunch together to talk about the first Gaspar book, and indeed whether we thought we could work together, we discovered all of these things that we had in common, and one of them was performing with orchestras. I narrate with orchestras. James paints and tells stories with orchestras. And back then, even before we'd finished the first book, we said, wouldn't it be wonderful if one day one of these stories could be turned into one of our orchestral works? So it was just a dream at that stage, but something very much that we knew that we wanted to do one day together. And then when Jonathan came along, the story hadn't been written. I proposed the idea of doing a narrated Gaspard adventure to Jonathan, and he looked at the previous stories and said that he would love to do it. He said that he loved foxes, which is good. And so from the outset, this was designed as both a book and a concert work. So normally when I write, I have to think about situations that will inspire James's pictures. And we found a way of working together. To begin with, I wrote far too much in the first book. Almost 2,000 words. And a children's picture book is probably about 500, 800. And I learned that if James can show something, I don't need to describe it. So the house was big, the door was blue, the steps were made of stone. All of that James can do in his pictures. So over the first two books, I'd learned that process of collaboration with James. But bringing a composer in was another extra element. It was incredibly exciting because now my brain was split into two, and half of it was thinking about the pictures that would inspire James. But then I also had this soundscape as well. So a bus journey was great because obviously there are lots of city sounds. There's the traffic, and there's the sound of Fortnum & Mason's clock in the story, Theatreland, Chinatown. So I think Jonathan really enjoyed that process as well of picking sounds out from the story. But yes, it was a very long answer to your question. It was a process of splitting my brain in two, and it was incredibly exciting. And in the same way that James and I discuss things about the story together and ways we might change what we've offered. Jonathan said to me, he said, I think there needs to be a little more peril for Gaspar. He said, I'd quite like to write some longing music. He said, so could you make him a little bit homesick? So there was a point of the story that was entirely shaped by Jonathan. So in that way, it's been a completely collaborative 3-person process, and creatively the most exciting thing I've ever done.
Interesting. I hadn't realized that Jonathan was so involved at that such an early stage in the creation of this whole story.
I love the image. I love the image of him walking down to Piccadilly to actually observe the chimes of the clock of Faulkner Masons.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant. From what I've seen of the score, and looking forward to starting the capture of this project in a very short time. But one of the things that I found really exciting was how the music lends an extra element in the development of the characters, in the personalities of the characters in this book. And I'm wondering, is that something that Jonathan brought to the table in the creative process, or did you work together to identify which instruments may represent certain characters in the story?
That was entirely Jonathan, really. I mean, he did say to me, he said, I think a bassoon for the fox. Yes, I mean, he is the expert musically in this collaboration. When I first heard the score, I mean, I had no idea what to expect. He hadn't. James will send me little sketches as he's working on the books, but I had nothing from Jonathan until it was finished. So to stand around his piano and hear it was extraordinary. It was incredibly moving. It brought tears to my eyes because he had taken the story and just added this extra layer to it, and it's quite a feat to create the sense of the journey that he does. As soon as Gaspar gets on the bus and the doors close, you are on that bus listening to the music and the momentum of the traffic and the hubbub of the city. It's a conjuring feat to me, and I don't really know how he's done it, and it's quite magical.
Yeah, I think magic is probably the only way to describe how all these amazing storytelling with beautiful images and beautiful music is going to create something really, really unique. What makes this even more unique is the fact that in the strange times we're in at the moment, with lockdown and the lack of live performances, which is, of course, the way that this whole project was originally conceived and someday will appear, has meant that with the RCNO, we've had an opportunity to create something even more unique. And that is a digital version of this. We're working very closely with a fabulous film company, Visible Fictions. And I think one of the things that is probably going to reveal itself that maybe you or I don't understand quite yet, because we haven't seen the vision quite yet of what's going to happen, but working with Visible Fictions to realize this in rather than a book form with music, but in actual fact with live storytelling, but in actual fact some animation as well. And I think this could be a really fascinating thing. And I'm wondering how you reacted when we proposed this idea of actually adding even a fourth element to the storytelling of Gaspar.
Well, it was beyond all of our wildest imaginations and hopes, I think. We had imagined just a kind of straight filming of the concert experience initially. So for a company that is the digital media and film is in the same way that music is to Jonathan and a pen and ink is to James, the tools of their artistry is digital filmmaking. So for them to bring that element to this, a kind of four-dimensional element to it is incredible. And also to be able to translate the experience of reading the book, seeing the pictures and hearing the music, and tying all of that together and presenting it in a way to children, in a way that really it is their medium. I mean, children are completely wedded to their phones and their tablets. So to bring the concert hall experience to them in their own kind of language, I think is really exciting and probably right at the forefront, actually, of how orchestras, theatre organisations are learning to adapt and present themselves. And the pandemic has taught all of us, I think, we've all made a very rapid acceleration in a journey that was happening anyway, in terms of concert experiences, theatre experiences. So I can't wait to see what they do. I keep likening it, and this dates me, to Paul McCartney and the Frog Chorus. Those of a certain age will remember his song was combined with animation, and to me as a child of 6 or 7, watching that on television, to see a storybook come to life has remained in my mind. So I'm hoping that this experience will be inspiring to this generation of children in a similar way.
Yeah, we are so excited at being able to reach out to young people in this new, innovative way, definitely. And I think it points towards maybe, if I can call it a silver lining in the sort of strange times we live in, is that creative people respond creatively. And it's been really exciting to see all of these forces come together. So was it important to you that the musical element of this journey in the story was with an orchestra, as opposed to, say, a band or a few individuals or a smaller ensemble?
Yes. Firstly, because I'd worked on the BBC Proms, so I had a lot of experience of orchestras and have always been fascinated by them. I also thought an orchestra was important because it's something that children don't see every day. I mean, not every child is lucky enough to be able to go and see large symphonic orchestral concerts. So I think that there is a real spectacle to seeing so many musicians on stage with so many different instruments. But also it was important to me because an orchestra is a collective experience. It's musicians performing together. It's about teamwork, and it's not about any one instrumentalist being the star. Even, often conductors are famous and well known, but I've seen orchestras working with conductors, and then if an orchestra doesn't like a particular conductor, you certainly know about it in the playing. So even, the role of the conductor is part of this teamwork. Quite often children come up to me at the end of book events or concerts, and it always saddens me when they say, how do I become famous? And we've become a society obsessed with fame. And that's partly down to programs such as the X Factor, Fame Idol, where to be famous is the goal. And I always say, just choose something you love doing, get pleasure from it, become really great at it. And who knows, maybe you'll make a name for yourself. But the most important thing is the experience, is the joy of doing something. And so that's particularly why I wanted it to be an orchestra, because it's not about being a star. It's about that shared musical experience.
Zeb, we have an enormous amount of support across the country for this project. And one of the main reasons that we've attracted so much support is the potential for this project to inspire. And I'm wondering, how do you think or hope or wish that we might inspire children to either take up art or story writing or literacy issues or to actually play an instrument? I mean, how many bassoon players are we going to have at the end of this project?
Well, a few more, I hope. My hope is that it just helps to fan the embers of any spark of creativity or curiosity or magic in any child that watches it, whether it's to go and see more orchestral concerts, or to take up an instrument, or to start writing stories, or just to kind of pay more attention to the world around them and the wonder in the city or the town where they live. It's just about opening children's minds and their hearts and making them receptive, I think, to the possibilities. I think that's what I hope, and it's wonderful that we've had so much support. We're incredibly grateful, and I think we can't wait to see what the Royal Scottish National Orchestra produces at the end of all of this. I can't wait to come up and start working with you all.
We're so looking forward to it, Zeb, and for the final realization of this project, when we finally get to put all of the different elements into it, I think it's going to be incredibly exciting. So I just want to thank you for joining me today, and we look forward to the launch of this, which will come later in the spring. And best of wishes for the book, which is coming out very soon also, and we are very excited. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill.